Psyker might not be the best class in Darktide, but it's definitely the strongest. It has the easiest time of getting the highest damage per round, and it has the most options when it comes to team support. And since this is a team game, that is pretty important. Whether you make a build to purge the heretics or to play a supportive role, Psyker has a ton of variety for a whole bunch of creative options that it's just fun to play around with and find what works best for you. And going between the two of them, a more damage focused one or a more supportive one, is just super fun every time I play. Psyker is a glass cannon, and though fragile, has a bunch of abilities and tools to almost trivialize any threat in front of them. I want to start with a quick rundown of Psyker's abilities because they are kind of how you play the class depending on what you pick. Venting Shriek is probably Psyker's #1 ability. On the surface, 50% peril quelling and soul blaze and an AoE in front of you might not seem too great, but it synergizes so well with Psyker's talents to reduce cooldown that if you make a build that is relying on peril, like staffs or empowered psionics, your ability to maintain your attacks all throughout a fight are basically unmatched out of all of the classes in the entire game, and you'll find yourself doing consistent high damage if you make the right build around it. The second ability I wanted to talk about is Scryer's Gaze. It definitely has the highest skill ceiling out of all of Psyker's abilities. It basically turns you into an amped up zealot, and most things in front of you will die very quickly. It still suffers from Psyker's lack of sustain compared to other classes, but on a 1-to-1 power ratio, it's basically unmatched. And killing things in front of you is extremely fast, and you might go down 1 or 2 times, but you will take a ton of them with you. And the most iconic of all, the shield, the bubble shield, everyone's favorite. You know, what is there to say about it? It's pretty self-explanatory. It protects you from projectiles, and it's great to plop down in front of an objective, in front of a downed teammate, in front of a drop down. It leads to very methodical advances. It keeps your team's toughness up. It's a great support to the team, and it's just extremely good. It might not be as powerful as some of the other abilities, but paired with a great team, it just makes every run feel like there's no danger at all. Let's talk about why you're probably happy to see a Psyker on your team. If you go in depth on Psyker's talents, they have a very good talent called Psychonetic Aura. It decreases the ability cooldown for you and allies in coherency every elite or specialist kill by 5%. So if you're playing on higher difficulties and you kill an elite or a specialist, you and your teammates all get more abilities, and more abilities equals more wins, more powerful teammates, basically everything, right? Auras, if we're talking about auras, they have 2 really good ones. 10% cooldown reduction, just more cooldown reduction for abilities. Abilities are probably the most effective thing in this game, so the more of them you use in a round, the more success you're going to have. And the second one being critical chance, critical hit chance. There's a lot of builds in this game that rely on crits, and a lot of people run them, in my experience. And there's no guarantee that you're going to be the only Psyker on a team, so really running one or the other is perfectly fine, in my opinion. I think that the 10% one's a little bit better, but like I said, there's no guarantee you're going to be the only Psyker, and honestly, 5% crit chance on most builds ain't that bad. Next, let's talk about blitzes. The thing that can either define or not define how you play. You can either play with it a lot or completely ignore it. You got Brain Rupture. It's great at attacking things from long range and killing them. It's good against armor, things like that. It also has a secondary thing where all of your attacks have a percentage chance to inflict it, which synergizes really well with a lot of attacks. You have Smite, everyone's least favorite because of how it trivializes the game, but honestly, I'm a certified Smite enjoyer. Yes, it makes the game easy, but every once in a while, it is fun to use. And then you have Assail. It's just good at clearing out hordes, things like that. Not a bad pick at all, although it does lock you out of getting Psychonetic Aura, so that is kind of unfortunate. Psyker is the most unique feeling class, and it definitely feels unique. If you ever started by playing Zealot or Veteran, and you try out Psyker for the first time, you're going to be like, wow, this is so different. It doesn't have the speed, it doesn't have the stamina, it doesn't have the same amount of endurance and resilience to stay in the fight like they have, but it does have warp powers, and they feel very satisfying to use. Psyker easily has the highest skill ceiling out of every class in this game, and if there was some kind of AI that could play this game masterfully, it'd probably pick Psyker 9 times out of 10. Having said that, this video is coming from the perspective of, let's say, an average player. I mostly play Auric Maelstroms or Auric Quick Plays, and I'm not like the greatest. I like to say I'm average. And like I said earlier, I find myself, if I make a correct build, I will do the most damage if I'm making a damage dealing build. If I make a support build, I am extremely effective at supporting the team. And I think that's why Psyker is great. You can do both. You can do whatever you want. And no matter what you do, you're going to be great at it. You know, if you make a Zealot support, well, you have your relic and you'll do your little, you know, Power of Christ compels you. And, you know, that's sort of about it. You know, Veteran has the ability to take people up, you know, pick people up with his ability, but it makes his ability worse. Psyker, on the other hand, you are always going to be a complement if you're going for that support role. If you're going for damage, like 7-8 times out of 10, if you're any decent and the other players on your team aren't another Psyker, you probably have a good chance of going highest damage, and pretty easily at that, honestly. Because like I said, Psyker, with the right build, you are just doing consistent damage practically non-stop in every encounter. And that's, I think, where this class shines the most. And that's why he's fun to play. Anyway, that's sort of the end of the video. If you liked it, thanks. If you even watched it, thanks, you know. I'm just a no-name YouTuber, just doing stuff to make the time go by. Ciao.